Hey guys, and welcome to Tnashi's Movie Corner. I am joined today by Brad again. Say hi, Brad.
Hello, everyone.
And being that this is the week that we are going to be getting The Force Awakens, which, oh my god, I can't wait. I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see it on Sunday if I can. I can't see it any sooner. Sad face. Anyway, we thought we'd discuss some kind of continuality problems with Star Wars, both that are actually there and what are not there. Because there's a few that people say are there, and I disagree. I don't think they're there at all. So, and this will go over all of the movies. I'm not going to incorporate anything else. I haven't read everything. I certainly haven't seen everything. So I'm just going based upon the movies and what we've seen thus far from the movies. So general audience, basically, right? So let me throw in there, get one right off the bat. Misconception people have. Hold on, my cat's scratching. Watching you, cat. Okay, I'm back. Am I? Yes, I'm back. One one of the ones that I think that people just have misconceptions about is in A New Hope, Obi-Wan makes a statement. He's like, and I'll probably get it a little wrong, so I apologize.
He's paraphrasing.
I don't know quotes, verbatim here. Okay, just bear with me. And he's like, I don't seem to recall ever owning a droid. If that's exactly right, that's the exact quote, you click that like button right now. You do it. Because, okay. So, yeah, that's the quote. And people are like, ha, he doesn't recall owning R2, but R2 was in the prequels. And R2 was in the Clone Wars. And, he must have owned R2. And I don't know how that voice, that was approaching troll land. But I hear this argument a lot. And I have never seen an instance. I got in a huge debate with a guy on this. Never have I seen an instant where Obi-Wan actually owned R2. R2 was with Padme. R2 was with Anakin. R2 helped out Ahsoka. But that's Clone Wars. But as far as the actual movies go, he's been with Anakin and Padme. Always with Anakin and Padme. He may have been with Obi-Wan, I don't think he was actually. Was he ever actually with just Obi-Wan? I don't recall him
I don't recall that either.
To me, there's nothing to establish him as being owned by Obi-Wan. Just because he was with them. And this guy wanted to make an argument with me about it. And he was like, oh, well, they were hanging out together and grew real close and everything. And I was like, yeah, but Chewie hung out with them too. Does that make Chewie his owner? Nope, not. So that's one of the issues I think comes up that I disagree with. I don't think that's I don't think that's a point for that. I don't think that's a problem. Going on to another one though, Leia. Specifically,
Princess Leia. Now, the problem with Princess Leia is that no matter what you go by, she's not a princess. Because even in the original trilogy by itself, it's clear that she is an adoption. Which means that by default, she wouldn't actually be a princess by any sense. And it's not like her adopted father, would have been like King Organa. Like he's the king of Alderaan.
He's definitely Senator Organa.
So both in the original trilogy and in the prequels, it would not have made any sense whatsoever to refer to her as being princess.
Now, the only sense it does make is that this was based upon the serials that used to come out, and I think it was John Campbell's. He did a book that this was kind of based off of, that went through kind of the hero tropes that you have in shows and movies, and so that's where it was kind of inspired from, which I understand that, but it was never established why she was quote unquote Princess Leia. at least as far as the movies are concerned. It never made any sense to me. I didn't understand it. So I think that's kind of a big problem, and that is actually more of the aspect of the original trilogy, which kind of goes with the first one. But, that's just one of the overall Star Wars, I think, problems, because it never gets explained. Never.
People just kind of go with it,
Honestly, though, you never find out if anyone else lived off of Alderaan. Surely not all the people of Alderaan. Surely they weren't all there at the time. I'm just saying, you would think. So does she become queen? Like, how does that even work?
Well, the impression that the movies give you is that they're all dead, and so she's not. If she were a princess, which she very clearly isn't, then she wouldn't be a princess any longer because.
But doesn't she still get called princess?
Yeah, people just kind of keep referring to her as Princess Leia.
That's like calling Vegeta Prince Vegeta, and it's like, what? The king is dead. Would you really be prince? You wouldn't be prince.
You'd be King Vegeta of
unless
two people.
Unless it's like a Naboo thing, but they never establish any of that. So yeah, that's definitely two of them. I think are kind of flawed overall. Going with the third one here. So, in A New Hope, I'm still going with the original trilogy. I'm gonna get into Clone Wars. I promise. In the New Hope, though, Vader senses that Obi-Wan's around. He's like, I can sense something I haven't felt since, and he goes off, and then he knows, he figures out about Obi-Wan and everything. So that happens, and then later on he senses that the Force is strong with Luke, right? As Luke is using the Force to help him fire off. Guys, this goes back to another video. He fires something in the hole. Right?
No.
Hold on. Oh, okay. No, but for real though, he that's how it makes him hit his target, as he's using the Force. Oh God, I didn't mean for it to sound like that, but no. The point is, Vader can all of a sudden sense. He can sense Luke drawing upon it. And then what ends up happening is Empire happens, and the reveal is there about, no, I am your father. And then all of a sudden there's a connection between them where Luke can now fully sense Vader, and Vader can fully sense Luke. And that continues on into Return of the Jedi. So you went from Episode 4, where Luke snuck on board the Death Star, and Vader didn't sense him, to all of a sudden, there's a connection, and they sense each other no matter where. No matter, what's happening there. They're sensing each other. That never made any sense to me.
Begs the question, why didn't he sense Luke earlier?
Well, and see, the thing is, we established already that Luke had the power of the Force. He had the Force on his side. He could do things with the Force. So, yeah, why wasn't he sensed earlier? That didn't make any sense.
Another one I will bring up is the fact that they keep referring to Obi-Wan as being Luke's trainer. Now, in Episode 4, all we got was a little bit of lightsaber training from Obi-Wan. Didn't get anything else after.
Yeah, he didn't do
but in later movies, being like 5 and 6,
right?
Vader refers to as like, Obi-Wan has taught you well. The thing is, Vader doesn't know that Obi-Wan was able to pull out the Force Ghost trick or anything like that.
Right, that's true. He doesn't even know.
He doesn't know any about that stuff. But Luke keeps getting better, and it keeps being referred to as Obi-Wan is teaching you. But Obi-Wan hasn't taught him jack,
Well, the other thing, too, is to kind of go along with that. In Empire, his skills are improved. In Return of the Jedi, his skills are improved. But how are they improved? We never find that out. We never find out how he knows how to do certain things. I mean, he does the Force choke, and I don't even know how he did that, because he never saw Vader do that, which I think I established in Return of the Jedi. We never see that. So how's he do it? So that doesn't make any sense. Also, the whole Force Ghost aspect, which they do explain a little bit in Clone Wars, as far as how Yoda's able to do it and Obi-Wan's able to do it. They have not explained how Vader's able to do it. And can you only be... I guess you have to be good, right? You have to be good in order to be a Force Ghost. But that doesn't make any sense, because I think it was in the prequels where they established that the Force was neither good nor evil. It's in all living things. It the whole will thing, going to the midichlorians and all that.
That has been established, and even in the thing that talked about how Yoda was finding out how to become, like how to achieve that. They ran into the ghost of, what was it, Darth Bane? So,
yeah. Well, that's again sticking to the movies though. I guess it's only a Jedi-like aspect, but it never really gets discussed. So that's the thing. Now here's where I'm gonna bring in the prequels. Okay, because I said I would. I'm gonna bring in the prequels here. Anakin is up in front of the council. He is this first when he's introduced to the council, and they said that they would not train him because he is too old. He is 9. Now flash forward to A New Hope. Yeah, I don't think Luke is 9 when he starts his training.
Biggest 9-year-old you ever saw.
He's certainly not 9 in Empire. When he goes to Yoda, who in Episode 1 was one part of the reason who said Anakin couldn't, because he was too old. And they had mirror things, because Anakin couldn't control his emotions, Luke couldn't control his emotions. Anakin was acting on impulse, Luke was acting on impulse. So yeah. And that's overall, it's an overall problem, but it is a prequel problem specifically as well, because that age thing wasn't established until the prequels. So I will grant people that. Again, all these are kind of overarching Star Wars problems because they fall specifically in with one trilogy or another or in between. I'm dictating as an overall flaw with it and not,
But regarding the training, though, that does beg 2 questions regarding Luke Skywalker. Yeah. First was, why didn't Obi-Wan start training him as a child? He would have been a full-fledged Jedi by the time that movie, that the 4th episode even started off, and he could have done that, but no.
Absolutely.
Obi-Wan's like, well, I'm going to wait and do this later, for no explained reason at all.
Well, he had to wait until he was old enough to give him, his dad's lightsaber.
Couldn't, start training him with the Force, to, move objects and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely not. Have you seen Uncle Owen? He didn't want any part of that.
The other thing is, though, is that Yoda initially starts saying this, well, I can't train him because he's, too arrogant or whatever have you. And, of course, he is having this argument, right in front of Luke, which, for one, is pretty... doesn't really make sense. But the bigger thing is, though, it's established, and this is going to tie into a whole nother issue, that Luke and Leia are the 2 hopes for the galaxy.
Oh.
You can't really be picky about training somebody when they're quite literally one of 2 options that you have.
Okay, see, that's not the argument I thought you were going with. But yeah, that's an argument on its own. Right. I grant you that. Obviously, why didn't they ever train Leia? That didn't make any sense. Especially since Leia, you would have thought Leia would have been the first one they trained, even before Luke, because Leia was already involved with the rebellion. She was right there in the middle of it.
And she's one of 2 options that can actually save the galaxy.
Right.
And not having Leia become a Jedi would have been really awesome, to have that on there. Having her trained as a Jedi and not even having a good reason as to why she's not trained as a Jedi.
No women power.
Which just, it's a dramatic loss of potential.
That's actually the funny thing is... and that's kind of goes a little off topic, but going into defense of the prequels a little bit is, in both cases, both trilogies, women are a little bit objectified in a way, because you see what Padme wears on Geonosis, and you see what Leia wears in front of Jabba. Also, you see the pose that Leia has when Luke first meets her. I mean, that's a thing on its own. But thing is, I think Padme does more than Leia does. Padme contributes more than Leia does. Leia's just kind of there, and Leia could have been such a powerful character instead of just a romantic character for Han.
Now, I'll admit,
she does do some things. I'm not saying she doesn't do anything. I'm just saying.
I know some people would be mad at me for saying this, but she does actually take some traits from her father, and the fact that she's a little bit, she's bold.
Yeah.
But in some cases,
really,
she's kind of foolish in the same aspect.
I see what you're saying.
You know.
No, but going with the whole training thing, it didn't make any sense to me that they would be like, "Oh no, don't go save your friends. If you do, you'll turn to the dark side. It's just gonna happen," and it didn't. But it's like, and your training is incomplete, and then he returns later, and it's like, no, your training's it's pretty much done. You just gotta go fight Vader. What are you talking about? If that's all I needed, why didn't you just be okay with me going to fight Vader when I was? Because that's exactly what I did. So there is that. So that's, yeah, I mean, those are definitely some issues.
I mean, real quickly regarding that, it's like part of the thing was it's like, well, I can't just leave my friends. You know, his friends being 2 droids, Leia, Han, and obviously Chewie. But if we had gone back to the thing to where Obi-Wan was like, okay, go to Dagobah to learn to be a Jedi, but also take Leia with you.
Oh, yeah.
That actually might have been an interesting discussion. It's like if both of them are trained to be a Jedi, and it's like, well, if you go now, you may save them, but Vader will probably win, and that'll just doom the whole galaxy. Or you can finish your training, in which case you'll have what you need to defeat Vader and save the galaxy once and for all.
Right.
Leia actually might have argued with them staying to train, because she has been a part of the rebellion for a long time. You know, she lost like all of her people and stuff, so that might have actually been a thing of perspectives that they could have had there. But the thing is, though, with the way that the movie is, again, one of 2 options is about to die.
Right.
For the second time in this series. And it's like,
I wouldn't I wouldn't have let Luke go on at all. I would have knocked his ass out. And when he woke up, been like, training you must. Like, I mean, if you're just gonna let him go off and go to his death, that's what you're saying. And then Leia's already there, and she is the other hope, and it's like, oh, okay.
But I think we're now probably at the point where we're gonna have to talk about like the biggest problem.
Biggest, huh?
Or this will probably have more than one part to it. But regarding the fact that Luke and Leia are twins.
Okay.
There's this thing about in episode 4 where, they're having to go rescue her. But Obi-Wan decides he's not going to tell Luke that Leia is his twin sister.
To be fair, Obi-Wan didn't tell Luke anything.
Yeah, and he comes up with the worst excuse ever when it comes down to this.
From a certain point of view.
I like that. But the thing is, he never tells them about that. And even when he shows up as a ghost form, he never tells them. And again, with Leia being the other hope for the galaxy, he never gets them trained. And when they talk about this later, he says something along the lines of how keeping it a secret was meant to protect her. But she was part of the Rebel Alliance for who knows how long, even before like episode 4.
Yeah.
She was always in constant danger. And the fact that in episode 4 they're having to save her from execution
this actually goes back to the prequels in this case, because she was given to Senator Organa, who was kind of outspoken against the Emperor at that point, right? So she was already kind of put a little bit in harm's way at the beginning, and that's kind of a thing. And I want to go directly into that, because she says in Return of the Jedi that she remembers her mother. Problem with the prequels is her mother dies in childbirth because she loses the will to live. So how is that possible?
That is a very big issue. And
now,
and obviously the fact that the mother dies because she loses will to live and all that kind of stuff is just
that's
kind of makes it
another
worse.
thing. Yeah.
But even if you were just to watch the original trilogy, it would kind of beg the question. It's like, well, how does this happen? Because they are twins, so they are the same age, and and all that. But they never really.
That can go upon who got separated to who and everything, and at what point in their age were they separated, and all that. And that's that to me is not the issue. The prequels have a problem with this issue because of when they choose to kill off Padme. So that is an issue with the prequels verse that doesn't consistently match up with the OT on that, because she says she remembers, but she couldn't have remembered. And they try to explain that in the comics, I think, but I haven't read it. So purely by a movie standpoint, that's something that wasn't addressed.
But to be
which I thought should have been.
Honest, I feel like it's still an issue with both, because even with...
Well, yeah, overall it's an issue.
Even with, like I said, with the original trilogy, there is possible explanations, but they're not really offered. There's also the sense that... I got the sense that Luke and Leia had actually talked about their past before, which is why he kind of brings it up the way that he does. But you would think that if they have talked about this before, and they realized that they had, the sketchy background, that they actually might have at least had a suspicion that could have been the case, way back when. But like I said, it kind of leaves a few more questions on that regard that don't get answered in any format, And then obviously we got an answer from the prequels, but that obviously doesn't mash up with what's in there. So no matter what you're going by, whether it's the thing as a whole or just the original trilogy, I feel like that was kind of ambiguous at best.
Now I want to address another issue that some people have that I don't agree with, because I don't see it being an issue, and I didn't actually realize the answer until recently. But the thing is, the whole point in the prequels is the chosen one that will bring balance to the Force, and people have said that, oh well, it must have been Luke, or it was Vader, because Vader died and he killed the Emperor. But that doesn't really bring balance, because balance is good and evil, yin and yang. But the funny thing is, that prophecy was already fulfilled if you go based upon the movies, because all the Jedi get wiped out but two, Yoda and Obi-Wan. And then all the Sith get wiped out but two, Darth Vader and the Emperor. That's your balance. Whereas before you had so many more Jedi than you had Sith, and the balance was uneven. So yeah, I think Episode 3 actually did a great job of doing that and fulfilling that. So that's not a continuality. That's not an issue with the trilogy or with the series as a whole, because it was already resolved before. Now, that being said, it would be thrown back out of balance if you go by Episode 6. But at the point of him fulfilling the prophecy, he technically did that and never said it had to be just for good. And I think it got misinterpreted by Jedi and by people alike.
And I'll admit, I never really picked up on that either until somebody had actually mentioned that to me. And it's like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense, because like most people, I was thinking about that struggle between light and dark that was happening with Vader, going from Jedi to Sith to being redeemed. He's not actually Jedi per se at the end, like I think we pointed out, but he is, but that's kind of what I thought about it, and I didn't realize, that there were actually 2 for 2 on this, so that was a very interesting prospect that was brought to our attention.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you can think of, specifically more towards the prequel side of things, perhaps? Is there anything that you can think of that doesn't work consistently with the series overall?
I think there was a little bit of an issue regarding Anakin in the prequels, because, this actually does have explanations for it, but...
As far as the movies, though.
But, well, I was actually meaning by the movies. The fact that in 2, Anakin is just he and Obi-Wan seem like they're kind of at his throats a lot.
Right.
And
Right.
there's kind of that tension that's there, and then they actually kind of go up,
And a great friend.
and then they decide to become comrades. By 3.
He was a bit of an asshole. He complained a lot. Sounded just like you.
Now it feels a little bit weird that they're supposed to be like friends, but then you get like that thing about where they're at each other's throats, and then it feels like 3 doesn't have enough time to have really set that off. But even if you weren't including things like Clone Wars,
Yeah.
I would feel more or less like that was like, okay, well, they've been together for so long that they're just kind of, you get like that even with your best friends. You're there with them for too long, you start fighting about little things, and then they just kind of build up and that sort of thing. But there's that sense of camaraderie that comes about from war and stuff. But it is a little bit odd to see it on the movies.
Right. Another issue that people think is there that's not is the whole clones, and clones being in the original trilogy. That's not actually the case. I never thought it was the case, but it's just not. It's not the case. They were clones in the prequels. They are people in the originals. That does get explained in other things. I always knew that to be the way it was. So I guess that just never really threw me off. But that's why the voices don't match up, and they're not all Jango's voice either. So that on its own should be an explanation of that.
I will say that actually does bring up something I had almost forgotten to mention. And whether you think this is a continuity issue or not, there's actually a the armor that the stormtroopers wear in the original trilogy. They made comments that's like, I can't see anything. It apparently doesn't protect you from anything, and it's just the worst thing you could possibly wear, and it makes no sense to have it, But armor should get better over time, So you did have and stormtrooper armor and clone armor looks very much identical, save for small tweaks and stuff like that. But clone armor works, stormtrooper armor doesn't.
I think one of the continuality issues, at least for me, it's an issue, is by the end of episode 3, the Emperor is established as the Emperor, but he still addresses the people who have representatives all over the place, right? So he still has those conversations with them, or at least he seemed to. He had them up to this point, and I would assume he'd have them after this point, because what you don't want is a widespread rebellion on everything by everyone, and that's kind of what the rebellion was it's a small group of people, in the big scheme of things. It wasn't planets, full-on planets generally coming. There were some planets, but it wasn't like every planet coming to rise up against them, okay? Thing is, you don't get an indication of that in the original trilogy. The way the original trilogy had it was that he just said what was happening, and it happened. He was the ultimate say. He didn't answer to anyone. He didn't have counsel with anyone. He just did. But the prequels brought it up as if he had counsel, as if he had people that he at least discussed things with. And he had other people with him in power. Maybe right under him, but still with him. And none of them are in the original. So it could, because of when the originals took place, it could be something that was just overlooked. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's just a problem that was with the prequels, because it didn't fully carry over to what the originals had, and that's what the prequels kind of had to do.
Yeah, and 4 he has a there's this talk about how he's dissolved the Senate and he's transferred power over to the governors of each region or whatever to help maintain order and that kind of thing. That. Except you don't even meet one.
That's my problem. Is there's still somebody. There's still some heads. There's heads of planets that you would think would come up, and they don't.
Not a one.
Anyway, so we've gone on so long. Thank you for sticking with us. If you haven't, well, screw you. No, but anyway, thanks so much for sticking with us. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Is there any last minute thing that you can think of? Got like 10 seconds.
I actually think we've been pretty thorough, so
sure we have.
I'm good.
I'm sure we've missed a ton. A butt ton. Anyway, so yeah, that'll wrap this up. Let me know what you think about it. Is there something we missed? Go ahead and tell me in the comments, or do you agree or disagree with the points we had? Hopefully you enjoyed this. Click this like button, share this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, watch my other vids. And yeah, until next time, peace.